The sun was settling that day when a stranger stopped by the roadside and asked two friends for direction. Amaka answered innocently, but what followed that simple act of help left everyone screaming. No one could explain it. It was strange, because kindness, they say, can save lives. But sometimes it could be the one thing that makes you question if it's something worth doing at all, because every soul that spoke to that man never remained the same. Once upon a time, on a calm evening, the kind where the orange sun glowed faintly over rooftops and the streets carried that soft, peaceful hum before nightfall, two friends, Amaka and Tinu, were walking home from a small corner store. They laughed over small jokes, teasing each other about how stressful their week had been. "Honestly," Amaka said, rolling her eyes, "if my boss shouts at me one more time this week, I'll just quit. I can't come and kill myself." Tinu giggled. "Quit? And start looking for job again in this economy? Please, just endure whatever it is, babe." They laughed again. Their voices echoed lightly down the quiet street, blending with the noise of a few market women and customers who also came to buy one thing or the other. The road was a little noisy as usual. And then, just as they approached the turn that led to their street, a man appeared ahead. He wasn't rushing. He walked slowly, almost too slowly, with his hands folded behind his back. His skin was pale under the fading sun, and he wore a brown face cap that shadowed most of his face. He stopped when he reached them. "Please, ladies," he said politely. His voice was soft but deep. "Which way leads to Aroa Street?" Tinu hesitated, glancing at Amaka. Amaka smiled kindly. She was always the friendly one. Her words came out calmly. "Oh, it's not far, sir. Just go straight and turn by that palm tree at the junction." The man nodded once. "Thank you," he said softly. Then he turned and walked away, slow, calm, and steady. Tinu watched him go for a moment, then turned back to Amaka with a smirk. This man must really be a stranger. "Who doesn't know Aroa Street in this neighborhood?" she teased. Amaka laughed lightly. "Well, there's no harm giving direction to a stranger." But as the man disappeared around the corner, a sudden cold wind blew. It was strange. There hadn't been any sign of rain or storm, yet the air turned sharp and icy for a brief moment. Amaka blinked and rubbed her arm. "Tinu, did you feel that breeze?" Tinu frowned. "What breeze?" Amaka's hand dropped slowly to her side. Then, without warning, she stopped walking. Her plastic bag fell to the ground. "Amaka?" Tinu called. No answer. "Amaka, what's wrong?" Amaka's face had gone pale, drained of all color. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. Her eyes were open, but her pupils looked dull and far away, like she wasn't really seeing anything. Tinu stepped closer, her heart racing. "Amaka!" she shouted, shaking her shoulder. Still nothing. Tinu shook her harder, already panicking. "Amaka, talk to me. What's wrong with you?" But Amaka stood still, breathing softly, her head tilted forward, her eyes empty. Tinu's voice cracked. "Oh my God, what's happening?" Within minutes, people nearby started gathering. A woman from across the road ran over. "What happened to her?" the woman asked. "I don't know," Tinu cried. "She just showed one man direction, and then she became like this." The woman gasped and touched Amaka's forehead. It was cold, unnaturally cold. "Jesus," the woman whispered, stepping back. "This is not ordinary." An elderly man joined the small crowd. He stepped closer and asked, "Where is the man she spoke to?" Tinu looked around desperately. He was just here. He asked where Aroa Street is and went that way. She pointed down the road, but the path was empty. There was no trace of anyone. The old man nodded slowly, his expression darkened. You say she talked to him before this happened?" "Yes, sir," Tinu said in a trembling voice. "He asked for direction. She answered him. And then, this." The man sighed deeply. "Child, if you see that man again, will you recognize him?" Tinu's eyes were already filled with tears. She nodded quickly. "Yes, I will never forget that face." But the man was gone, vanished into the night as though he had never been there. The people began whispering among themselves. Some said it was spiritual. Others said maybe she fainted. But Tinu knew what she saw. And deep inside, something told her this wasn't ordinary. By the time they carried Amaka home, the news had already spread through the neighborhood. Her mother ran out the moment she heard voices outside. "Who's that?" "What happened?" she shouted, rushing toward the crowd. When she saw her daughter limp in their arms, her scream tore through the night. "Jesus, Amaka, my child." They laid Amaka on the sofa. Her mother knelt beside her, shaking her gently. "Amaka, Amaka, wake up. It's me, your mother." But Amaka's eyes remained open, staring blankly at the ceiling. Her lips were slightly parted. Her chest rose and fell slowly, like someone alive but not present. Her mother turned to Tinu, her hands already trembling. "What happened to my daughter? What did you people do to her?" Tinu couldn't answer at first. She was crying uncontrollably. "Auntie, we didn't do anything," she muttered. "A man asked her for direction, and after she answered, she just became like this." The woman gasped. Her hand flew over to her mouth, covering it. "What man? Who?" "I don't know him. He wore a brown face cap. He just asked where Arawa Street is." Her mother's eyes widened in fear. "Arawa Street?" The name sent a chill through her. She had heard strange stories before about people disappearing after giving directions to strangers. But those were things she never believed. Until now. She turned back to her daughter, crying, "Amaka, please wake up. My baby, please." Yet, Amaka saw still, looking almost lifeless. In no time, neighbors filled the small sitting room, whispering prayers and advice. One of them, an older woman, touched Amaka's wrist and muttered something softly. "She's alive," she said finally, "but her spirit isn't here." Something took her. The words hit Amaka's mother like thunder. Her knees weakened. "Took her? What do you mean, took her?" she repeated. The woman sighed. "Not her body, her spirit. Something has held her somewhere. You have to pray or take her to someone who can help." Amaka's mother clasped her hands together, crying loudly. "Oh God, whoever did this to my child, your evil will not stand. I call upon heaven. Please help me release my daughter." Her voice shook as she wept. Her tears fell on Amaka's still hands. The neighbors prayed with her, some loud, some whispering, others already terrified. That night was long and heavy. Amaka's mother refused to leave her side. She sat by her bed, candles burned, and her eyes were swollen from crying. She held her daughter's cold hand and whispered over and over, "Amaka, come back to me. My child, wherever you are, hear my voice and come back." Outside, the night deepened. The wind blew softly through the window curtains. But inside that small house, there was only silence, the kind that feels alive. And in that silence, if you listened closely enough, you could almost hear a faint whisper. Not from the mother, not from anyone in the room, but from somewhere far away, calling, like a voice trapped in another world, trying desperately to answer. Because while her body lay still on the bed at home, Amaka's spirit was somewhere else. She opened her eyes slowly, but what she saw wasn't her mother's room, nor the familiar ceiling she'd known since childhood. It was a place swallowed by darkness, endless, thick darkness. Cold air pressed against her skin. Every sound she heard echoed like whispers through a deep cave. Amaka tried to speak, but no sound came out. Her throat felt locked, her body felt heavy. And then she saw the most shocking things she'd never seen all her life. All around her were other people, young men and women, all tied up, their hands bound behind their backs, their mouths covered with thick black cloths. Some struggled weakly. Others were already too tired to move. Their eyes, wide, empty, terrified, darted helplessly in the dim red light that flickered from a burning pot at the center of the room. The air smelled awful, a mix of smoke, old blood, and something burning. Amaka's stomach turned. She could hear low voices murmuring from every direction, whispering names she didn't recognize. But none of those voices belonged to the captives. Then she noticed the shadows, dark, shapeless figures moving around the walls, shifting, stretching, whispering. But they had no faces. At the center of it all stood a tall man wearing a red cloth that flowed down his shoulders like fire. He held a small bowl in one hand, its rim coated with something dark and wet. In his other hand, he held a sharp knife, long, shiny, and cold. He was chanting in a strange language. His voice was deep and heavy, echoing through the room like thunder. Around him stood others, masked in black, bowing and murmuring the same chant after him. Every time he raised the knife, the others responded, louder and faster. Amaka's body trembled. She looked down. Her feet were tied. She tried to scream, but her mouth was covered too. Only muffled sobs escaped. Then one of the masked figures turned toward her. He walked closer, slowly, his bare feet dragging against the dusty ground. He bent near her, studying her face like she was an animal on display. Amaka's heart raced. Her eyes darted around, searching for a way out. But there was none. The room had no windows, only stone walls covered in markings she couldn't understand. She started crying silently. She didn't know where she was, or how she got there. But deep down, she could feel it. Something had gone terribly wrong the moment she answered that stranger and gave him that direction. Suddenly, the tall man in red shouted something loud and strange. The chant stopped. He turned toward Amaka and pointed at her. "She's the next one," he said in a low voice. The others began to move. Amaka's breath quickened. She struggled harder against the ropes. Her wrists bled, her body shook, her muffled cries echoed faintly through the chamber. And then she heard it, a faint voice, far away, almost like wind. "Amaka, Amaka, come back to me." It was her mother's voice, soft, desperate, and trembling. For a brief moment, Amaka froze. She looked around wildly, searching for where it came from. But it was nowhere. Still, the voice came again, echoing through the air. "My child, come back to me. Wherever you are, come back." Tears filled her eyes. She shook her head violently, trying to free herself, but the ropes only dug deeper into her skin. She could feel her mother's cry vibrating in her chest, as though a small part of her soul still heard it. Her heart ached. She wanted to shout back, "Mummy, I'm here. I'm here." But her mouth wouldn't move. All she could do was cry. And as her mother's voice faded slowly into silence, the man in red raised his knife again, ready to begin the ritual. But before he could, one of the masked men ran toward him. "Master, wait. There is a disturbance. One of them is being called." The tall man hissed. "Hold her down," he ordered. "Her body is still alive. We must keep her here before she escapes." The other masked men obeyed, tightening the ropes around Amaka's body. She screamed through the cloth. No sound came out. Her tears rolled down, glistening in the red light. And just like that, the chants began again, faster, louder, darker. The sound echoed endlessly. Her mother's voice was gone, and Amaka was trapped, helpless, and waiting. 2 days passed. Back in the real world, the sun rose and set like nothing had happened. But inside Amaka's home, the air was heavy, quiet, and sorrowful. Amaka's mother hadn't slept since that night. Her face was swollen from tears. Her voice had grown hoarse from praying. She sat beside her daughter's bed, whispering softly, "Amaka, my child, please wake up. I'm here. Please don't leave me." Amaka's chest still moved, but her eyes never blinked. Her skin was pale, her hands cold. She looked alive, but her mother knew. Her daughter was somewhere else. That afternoon, Tinu decided to check on her friend again. Her heart was heavy. For 2 nights, she dreamed of Amaka standing by the roadside, calling her name faintly. She walked slowly down the street, lost in thought, until something made her stop. Ahead, standing near the roadside, was a familiar man. Tall, quiet, wearing that same brown face cap. Her heart skipped a beat. Her mouth went dry. It was him, the same stranger from that day. He was talking to a young motorcyclist, his voice calm, polite, exactly the same way he'd spoken to Amaka. "Please, my brother," he said, "where is Aroa Street?" Tinu froze. Her legs trembled. The motorcyclist smiled and pointed. "Go straight and turn left." But before he could finish, Tinu screamed. She ran forward, grabbing the stranger by his trousers. "It's you!" she shouted, her voice trembling. "You're the one who did this to my friend." The man recognized Tinu immediately, and instantly his face changed. His calm smile disappeared. His eyes widened. He tried to pull away, but Tinu held tight. "Help! Somebody help me!" she screamed. People came running from nearby shops and houses. "What happened?" they asked. Tinu pointed at the man, panting. "This is the man. He asked my friend for direction, and after she spoke to him, she has been almost lifeless. She hasn't recovered since that day." The man shook his head quickly. No, I don't know what she's talking about." But just then, someone shouted, "Look!" They all turned. The young motorcyclist, the one who had just spoken to the stranger, was now standing completely still. His eyes were pale, his body stiff. He looked lost, frozen in place, his hand still raised as if he was pointing at something invisible. Gasps erupted from the crowd. A woman screamed and stepped back. "Jesus, it's happening again," the crowd murmured in panic. "Did you see that? He just turned like a statue. It's the same thing that happened to that girl last week." Tinu clutched the man tighter, shaking with anger and fear. "I told you. He's the one. He's doing something to people." The man's breathing grew heavy. Sweat rolled down his neck. He tried to break free, but more hands grabbed him. Angry, frightened people surrounding him now from every direction. "Tell us what you did to him," one man shouted. "What kind of devil are you?" another yelled. The stranger's voice trembled. "I didn't do anything. Let me go." But no one listened. The young motorcyclist stood motionless, his eyes empty. The same emptiness Amaka's had. Fear turned into rage. The people dragged the stranger to the ground, shouting over each other. "If you don't speak," an elderly man barked, "you'll never leave this place alive." The stranger's lips quivered. He looked around, trapped, surrounded, beaten. And in that moment, he knew his secret was no longer safe. More and more, the crowd kept closing in around him like a wave of fire closing in on its prey. He was on his knees now, breathing heavily, sweat glistening on his forehead. "Talk," one man shouted, grabbing his collar. "What have you been doing to people?" another barked. "Confess before we hand you to the authorities." The man's voice shook. "Please, I didn't do anything wrong." Before he could finish, a hard slap echoed through the air. A woman screamed, "Liar! We just saw it happen. That boy over there, he's like a statue because of you." The crowd grew louder. Anger, fear, confusion. Everyone wanted answers. Tinu stood in the front, her voice trembling with rage. "Tell them what you did to my friend," she cried. "Tell them what you did to Amaka." The man's lips trembled. He tried to crawl backward, but the people pushed him down again. "Talk before we end you here," a man yelled. The stranger's eyes darted left and right, surrounded, nowhere to run. Finally, he broke. All right, I'll talk." The noise died down instantly. Even the wind seemed to stop. The man's voice came out shaky, low, and hollow. I belong to a group," he began slowly. "A secret order, a cult. We take people, not their bodies, but their spirits." A gasp rippled through the crowd. He swallowed hard and continued, his words trembling. "We move around like normal people, asking simple questions. We pretend to be lost, asking for direction or help. But once the person answers, their spirit leaves their body and comes to us. Their voice becomes the bridge. Their words open the door." The people stared at him in shock. "What kind of evil is that?" one old man shouted. The stranger nodded weakly. Tears were running down his cheeks now. "It's not every answer that works. Some people are strong, and others are protected. But those who are not, once they speak, their soul is captured immediately and appears in our shrine. Their body remains here, weak, lifeless, like that girl." He pointed to the motorcyclist still standing motionless nearby. The man's hands were shaking. "I didn't want to do it again," he whispered. "They made me. They said every spirit brings power and wealth. They said as long as we keep asking, we'll never lack anything." Women covered their mouths, crying softly. Some men began praying under their breath. "You mean to say," one man asked slowly, "that all these times you were just pretending to need help? You were really hunting people?" The stranger nodded. "Yes." He couldn't even look them in the eyes anymore. A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd, fear mixing with fury. Children were pulled back by their mothers. Everyone stared at him as though he wasn't human anymore. Then, one man stepped forward, his voice filled with trembling rage. "If you can take someone's spirit with your mouth, then you must know how to bring it back. Tell us how." The stranger hesitated, his eyes darted nervously. I can try," he said. "Try?" someone yelled. "You will do it." The crowd pressed closer. The man nodded quickly. Yes, I can. But to release a spirit, I must re-ask the same question I asked before. The person must answer again. Only then will their spirit return." Everyone turned toward the motorcyclist, still standing stiff, his eyes empty. "Then do it now," the elderly man commanded. "Ask him the same thing again." The stranger's hands trembled. "Please, let me go after." "Do it," the crowd roared. All right, I will. Please spare me, he answered immediately, scared. His voice cracked. He turned slowly toward the young motorcyclist and whispered the same words he had spoken before. Please, my brother, where is Aroa Street? For a moment, nothing happened. Then, weakly, the young man blinked. His head tilted slightly. He looked around, dazed. The crowd gasped. He touched his chest, confused. Where am I? He muttered. A woman screamed in shock at the motorcyclist's revival. The crowd exploded with noise, shouting, crying, praising God, cursing the stranger all at once. When he was asked what he saw, the motorcyclist looked around, trembling. I saw people. They were all tied. I saw a man in red cloth. He was calling names. I don't know how I got there. The crowd fell silent again, their faces filled with horror. One old woman crossed herself repeatedly. Blood of Jesus, that place is real? Another whispered. So all those missing people we heard about. The old man who had been leading the questions stepped forward again. He pointed at the stranger. You will undo everything you've done. You hear me? You will free that girl, too. The one you took first. Tinu stepped forward quickly, tears running down her face. Yes, you must come with me. You must bring back my friend, Amaka. Yes. The crowd agreed instantly. She's still alive. She's someone's daughter. You will not rest until you fix what you did. The stranger tried to plead. Please, I beg you. If they find out I spoke, they will kill me. But the old man's voice thundered. If you don't fix what you broke, you'll not even live to see them kill you. The crowd roared in agreement. Some grabbed his shirt, pulling him to his feet. They all roared. You're going to that girl's house right now. The man nodded helplessly. At this moment, fear etched across his face, and that fear pushed him to give in. All right, I'll do it. I'll do it, he stammered. Tinu stood beside him, her fists clenched. Her voice cracked as she spoke. If anything happens to my friend, you won't live to tell the story. The man didn't respond. He just lowered his head, trembling. As the crowd began to move, leading him through the street, people from nearby houses came out to see what was happening. You took her spirit, but God didn't let you finish your evil. The stranger kept his head bowed, shaking uncontrollably. Please, I've done what you asked. Please, don't let them kill me. The crowd didn't answer. They dragged him outside and handed him over to the vigilante group waiting at the end of the street. You'll face the law for what you've done, one of the men said coldly. The stranger didn't resist. He only lowered his head as they led him away into the darkness. Inside the small house, Amaka's mother held her daughter's face in her palms. Her voice was shaky, but filled with gratitude. My child, I thought I lost you. I thought I'd never hear your voice again. Amaka smiled faintly. You prayed for me, didn't you? She nodded. Tears fell from her eyes again. Every single second. Welcome back, babe, Tinu muttered, placing her hand over Amaka's shoulder. You're home now. You're safe. And for the first time in days, the three of them sat quietly. No fear, no panic, just the sound of deep relief and peace filling the room. Outside, the evening had gone still. No wind, no voices, only silence, the kind that comes when evil has finally been defeated. And the street remained quiet till morning, shaken, yet grateful that what was meant for death had turned into a story of deliverance. Lesson from this story. Besties, always stay cautious of who you respond to. Not every stranger deserves an answer. Some questions are traps in disguise. Be careful who you speak to, because not every voice that calls out to you belongs to the living. And sometimes, kindness without discernment can open a door you may never be able to close. Before you show anyone the way, make sure they're truly human. If a stranger's question feels strange or unsettling, walk away, or call the attention of others who can help. Remember, not every "please, where is this or that place" is innocent. Some are invitations into danger dressed as humility. Did you enjoy this story? Have you ever met a stranger who made you feel uneasy? Someone who asked for direction or help, and something just didn't feel right? What was the experience like? Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us. If you were Tinu, what would you have done that day? And please, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to African Tales by Emaday for more chilling, mysterious, and eye-opening stories like this one. See you in the next one, and remain blessed.